Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to another episode for the Securing the Digital Supply Chain. This is the 9th episode for this series that we have, and today with us, we have one of the very well-known entrepreneurs in the Bay Area, Punit Soni, who is currently the CEO of Suki.ai. And Punit has a storied background in literally any one of the well-known companies that you can throw a rock at. His name is associated with them, but I probably will not be able to do justice to Punit's background. So Punit, would you kindly provide us with a very quick overview of your background, your interests, and what drives you?
Absolutely. Hey, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Anirban. And I'm excited to talk about this topic. It's actually very close to our heart, given where we are. But as you mentioned, I'm currently a part and running a company called Suki, which is a company in healthcare AI. Basically, it's a speech company. We build a digital assistant for doctors. And I can talk about that in more detail in a bit. In terms of my background, it's a little all over the place. I am an electrical engineer by training, did engineering design for the first some time of my career, and then was in venture capital, and then went to Google. And in Google, I was in the mobile team and ran the mobile apps group from a product management perspective for some time, and then was in gaming and social networking. And then when we acquired Motorola, I was asked to go run software for Motorola. Before I started Suki, I was the chief product officer of India's largest e-commerce company, Flipkart.
Yep.
And so the running joke around my background is that I have done enterprise software search, mobile apps, hardware, gaming, social networking, e-commerce. It's only logical that I'm building a company in healthcare at this point. But that's a little bit of my background. We started this company called Suki because it is our belief that one of the most impactful companies in technology ever built is going to be in healthcare.
Yes.
And we believe that there is a way to rethink the experience that clinicians have in healthcare with voice being at the forefront of that. And so then the question is, what is the Siri for doctors, and how will that behave, and how will that make patient and doctor lives better? That's the question we're trying to answer with the product we are building.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. That was a very good compendium of all your experience. And thank you very much again for joining us. Since you have had experience in so many things, and I'd just like to say that I always have found like some of the best technical people that I've run across have had somehow, funnily enough, VHDL and Verilog experience. Because in VHDL and Verilog, you have to be very terse with what you're doing. You don't have much room to make any mistakes. It's like the punch card era where this is it. This is the card that you got to put together. You don't have like, oh, let's run it again and I figure it out and whatnot. So I think your experience in that area definitely translates to quality in different aspects of life that you are now exploring. But going back to Suki as an example, this specific problem space that you're exploring at this point of time and helping customers with, from the perspective of a CEO, when you look at your revenue generation engine, what are some of the risks that you sometimes think about from a technical aspect that can affect this revenue generation engine?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Ultimately, the company that we are building, if you say you're going to rethink healthcare tech to make it assistive and invisible, then effectively you're putting the engine of your company in the hands of core tech and product. And when you think about core tech and product, the problem in healthcare tech is that you don't have margin for errors.
Correct.
I can't say, oh, I'm going to be like 95%, working and 5% it will not be functional, because that doesn't work.
Correct.
And so when people ask me, why is healthcare tech so difficult? I tell them, just think of it from a tech stack perspective. You have to put together a speech recognition system. You have to build an intent extractor. You have to build a natural language extraction system. You have to figure out NLP. Then you have to actually build mobile apps. Then you have to build, web apps. You have to put all of that together. Then you have to make sure that there is infrastructure, multi-tenancy, it works across the board. Then you have to make sure there's security, privacy.
Correct.
And when you do all of these things, then you get a pilot,
Yes, that's true.
right?
Yes,
So,
correct.
so, on top of all the things that you're a enterprise entrepreneur yourself, on top of all the things and complexities that you deal with when you build a company,
Correct.
you have to know that there is an amount of work you have to do in what we call this supply chain of software, this structure
Correct.
that needs to be fully built before you even start. That is a very complex thing. And when it comes to revenue generation, the biggest impact it has is, first of all, you need a lot of resources in play before you can get to first revenue.
Yes.
Because you have a lot of testing and piloting to do before that happens.
Yes.
Second is that a lot of these places have a lot of risks associated with it and liabilities. So you have to be very careful about what you're actually deploying.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's very easy to like start hurting your bottom line. So very complex stacks. Lot of different technologies required. Not all of them have to be built in-house, but you need to have the same level of you have to be able to stand behind your entire software supply chain at a very high level of integrity. Otherwise, it is a fundamental risk to your business.
Correct. Very, very aptly put. Second question would be that from the perspective of as an entrepreneur, you answered the question of what are the various pieces in the pipeline that you need to be aware of. What would your advice be to people who oftentimes think of security as a cost center versus something else that they think of as a revenue generator? How should they reconcile the fact that security is not always a cost center? It's something, or sometimes people say, but just insurance. These are like two laid back approaches to security. What would you say to these types of people?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about my space, healthcare tech, I think it actually kind of extrapolates to many spaces in general in today's world.
Yeah.
I think that my ability to get my sales cycle to be much faster is dramatically impacted by the security posture that the company has.
Perfect.
Right?
Yep.
And I have to basically put together an auth system, a multi-factor association system. I have to do these compliance things. Let's sign up for all of these. Let's actually spend the money to actually check off all of these boxes. You can think of it as a problem, as an onerous thing you have to do so that you can actually build a company, or you can think of it as a huge moat, as something that actually makes your company product better.
Correct.
In healthcare tech, if you have the right security posture and it's been proven through a combination of compliance and through your answers and your infrastructure and how you actually present to people, you can shortcut. There is at least 60 to 70% decline in sales cycles and the time that it takes.
Very nice.
Right?
Very nice.
So at the end of the day, for a company that actually has some kind of exceeding revenue targets, it can dramatically change your revenue profile if you actually do the right thing. So I don't think of first of all, from a direct revenue cycle, sales cycle perspective, there is a huge impact in the speed of the sales cycle, depending primarily on your security posture. Right. Yes, the product has to be good and all that stuff is true, but nobody should discern between the product being good and security being good. It's the same thing, right? And so that's one aspect. The second aspect is we actually handle very, very, very sensitive data. So from our perspective, if we actually don't do a good job of handling it, if we don't have the highest level of security, privacy, compliance, data handling mechanisms in place, you're creating a significant amount of risk, not just to the company, but to the lives of people.
Correct.
And why do you build companies? At the end of the day, what people are looking for in healthcare tech companies is trust.
Yes.
And consistency.
Yes.
And so your core product is better, your business is better, you can get to revenue faster if you actually have the right posture.
Very nice, very nice. This leads into a nice segue to privacy related issues that oftentimes come by in a lot of technology companies. And it's been unfortunate in the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of the large brand names have been to some extent slapped on the wrist by different organizations to say that, hey, you're not treating data in the right way. And we've seen the growth of paradigms like GDPR on top of other privacy paradigms that have been there. From the health tech space, do you feel that things like GDPR, CPRA, CCPA, these things are more onerous, or are they a step in the right direction? What is your perspective?
Yeah, you know, the look, we are both doing building companies, and we obviously understand the implication and cost of having to go through a lot of these things because they're forced on us versus things that we have to do because that makes a better business and a better company.
Agreed.
Right? At the end of the day. So, you know, if you practically think you're an entrepreneur who's starting a company and you're listening to this and you're thinking about like all the complications you have to deal with in the, you know, some of these protocols that we talk about.
Yes.
I think it's better. I think it's better to think about them from the perspective of, first and foremost, what do you need to do to make sure that your core principles of product development and business development are met first. Okay. There is a bunch of things we can do from data handling perspective that just makes a better company. For example, if you actually have a higher level protocol around how you handle PHI, anonymization of data, making sure that you can save data in the right way and also delete data in the right way when the right time comes in the right protocol, you have a better shot at actually getting access to data.
Correct.
If you have a better shot at getting access to data, then you have a better shot at building a better product and hence better business. So first and foremost, my advice to my fellow entrepreneurs is going to be, don't start with thinking about the things you have to check off to get there. Start by asking yourself, what is the things you need access to build a better business? And ask yourself, how can you actually do it, in what systems you need to put in place so that you can get more access to it in a safe way.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Start there. Now, once you get there, then after that comes things that are like binary switches. In some places and some markets, certain things have to just be done because the regulatory environment is such that you can't get access to the market. That's a binary switch. Unfortunately or fortunately, whether you agree or not, you'll have to adhere to the switch if you want to go there.
Correct.
But that's a second order discussion, not a first order discussion. First order is a core principle discussion. Then there are other places where it's speeding up of sales cycles. Being SOC compliant is actually a dramatic speeding up of sales cycle than not being. Because they practically have to look through a lot of things in your infrastructure to assess that when they can just look at a compliance thing.
Correct.
Right? And so I would like to think of these things from the perspective of first principles. What is needed to build a better product? What is needed to build a better business? What is needed to speed up both product development and revenue generation? And then you end up checking the boxes.
Correct.
So are they onerous? If none of those things are actually enabled by doing something, that's probably onerous.
Yes.
But otherwise, you're operating in a market where you have to actually get those things done. And by the way, those who do it well end up actually building bigger and better companies and better products than those who don't.
That is very well put. That is very well put. From the perspective of health tech, a lot of times people have this perspective that there are certain industries where they adopt technology or cutting edge technologies faster versus some who do not, because they're risk averse and whatnot. It has been an observation, though, that in the last 10 years, healthcare has kind of turned around in terms of adopting many types of new technologies. Would you say that the rate at which they're adopting newer age technologies has been rapidly increasing?
It's a very interesting question, Anirban. I think that the rate at which they are exposed and have a tendency to adopt new technologies has rapidly increased.
Yes.
But the cross interoperation with the prior stack is still existing. So you should not think of this as a replacement set of things. You should think of this as complementary and evolutionary step of things.
Correct.
Right? Correct. I could build a voice-based digital assistant. I could build the most cutting edge user interface and product in the market where it comes to actually doctors just saying, hey, this patient like? Give me this information, show me that, prescribe this thing. But it still needs to work with the electronic medical records that have been around for the last 15 years and probably have their own struggles. It still needs to have the right interoperate, like IO, data IO with APIs, NHL7 and stuff like that, that you would have thought a modern cutting edge energy does not have to deal with. The pipelines of data interoperation in healthcare are still in the process of being laid out. So if you lay those pipelines out properly, you can't build cutting edge products, which necessarily means, to your point, there is a tendency to adopt, but you still have to carry the baggage of the last generation.
Yes.
You're not replacing, you're augmenting.
Correct. And you're right that even in the Fortune 50, there's legacy products. You go to Citibank, they'll have like AS400s running behind the scenes in a lot of places. Same case with the larger financial organizations. So you're absolutely right that rip and replace is always a very difficult strategy. The wraparound kind of working better together strategy is always a better recipe for success.
Yeah. And to your point, I think finance is a great example. I think healthcare is now getting to where fintech got to a few years ago. Now people would say fintech is a mess. It's so complicated and mess, and there's so much. But at least people started laying those pipelines out and have been trying to like overcome it. Healthcare has started. So to your point, healthcare is now in the middle of that transition.
I see. You brought up an important point in terms of HL7 and data transfers via APIs. It's been seen over the last 10 years, and MuleSoft is a great example of success in that API security space and API connection space. More and more people are feeling the need to connect with third-party services, exchange, because we're all coming to that realization that I cannot be the king of all trades. I can be the jack of many and a king of a few if I have to keep my core specialization. And so we're exchanging data left and right with APIs. Are there any concerns that you hear from your customers or you think about when it comes to using APIs to exchange data with third parties?
Yeah, really good question. By the way, like, that, this is one of the reasons I was very attracted to some of the work you're doing in this space too. You cannot simply build all of these things yourself. I just gave you an example of how much you have to do to get a pilot in healthcare tech.
Correct.
Every one of the things I said is a whole stack of its own right. Data interoperability, how you're going to sanitize data, what is the auth process you're going to use, how are you going to manage this data, which part sits here, which sits in a different partition. Like, just the complexity of software development is so high, and you end up having to work with a lot of vendors, a lot of them. And at the end of the day, they're all sub B8. So you have to like assume the responsibility for making sure everything is working well. So the problem is very real. And it takes a lot of energy in the company to actually make sure that we can stand behind our entire stack. On the other hand, I'm a speech company. I will build speech recognition. I can build intent extractors. I can build NLP. I can build, user experiences. I can build mobile apps. I can't put together entire stacks of like interoperability just by myself. I can't put together all the security protocols just by myself. I need to work with people to do this. So everybody needs to know what is it that they really want to focus their resources on and what is it that they can leverage. But what that leads to, Anirban, is a very complex supply chain that you have to really keep a handle on. I mean, to be honest, sometimes I feel like you need to just keep a handle from a financial point of view.
Exactly.
Half of the time,
exactly,
I have to tell my team to say, can we do a review every 2 or 3 months just to see what are we paying for? Because some of these things aren't being used. And then some are being used and we are not using them the right way. So first of all, you have a financial problem. Like, I'm spending more money on things that I may not need to because some engineering leader decided we should buy that. And then that person is doing something completely different now. Second, I don't have a good sense necessarily, would not have a good sense necessarily without a lot of effort on where data is sitting and how it's being used and what the setup is. So now you have a financial issue, you have a data issue, right? And then ultimately beyond that, you also have, in my opinion, a business or a product issue. What does the whole supply chain look like and how do we leverage it the best?
Correct. 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 Correct.
So
Correct.
what you guys are doing, and I know that this is more about like the generic problem, but like whether it's you or companies in your space, they're very important
Yes.
because we can't solve this. I want to build my product. I don't want to spend time trying to figure out what my supply chain looks like
Correct. Correct. Correct.
all the
Correct.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's been amazing to get the feedback from you, Punit. This has been very helpful. And I'm sure our viewers will really appreciate the feedback and the perspective that you've shared with them with your very interesting background. And so we'd just like to say thank you again. You've been a great supporter of our journey, and we really appreciate it. And thank you again for sharing your thoughts with our viewers.
Absolutely, Anil. But look, I mean, in closing, I will say the work that your team is doing is very critical. It's critical because you enable a whole generation of companies to be built, right? I can spend a lot of energy and time trying to like figure out these pieces or have comfort that I will get the right data to make those choices while focus on the core problem I'm solving. So in this iteration and evolution of software that we are in, this generation of companies have to come about, the kind of companies you're building. And so all power to you. And hopefully we will find a way to collaborate more. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you again, sir. Thank you very much.
Take care.